So ultimately, the Ellerman is a celebration of South Africa, South African people, South African wine, and South African food, and just us coming together.
South African wine is so special because it's not simply just drinking a glass of wine. It's like a window into the culture of the Cape Winelands. It's about the growers in the vineyards. It's about the wine producers. It's about the people serving the wine, the chefs cooking the food. It's really about a whole coming together of so many different elements to create what you have in your glass. With a collection of over 10,000 bottles of local South African wine, it made perfect sense for us to create a wine that would be part of our DNA and that was really special to us.
So we knew we wanted to do it. I guess we were looking for the right time. But we wanted to have that sense of place when you drink that wine. You feel like you got all those senses from the place where you are. Serenity, balance, freshness, we have the oceans right in front of us. A sense of calmness in the wine, everything's just balanced. And be able to identify the vineyard that will achieve that together. Erika has that. The connection with her vines that she worked with, the vineyard that she worked with, and be able to identify those ones, the connection with the soil, and what to give, what to pick. She's amazing.
When we started to look at what the blend of the Ellerman needs to be, it took me back to what can we showcase? How can we showcase this wine and still show the elegance of the South African winelands? But the real magic of these vineyards are the soils they're planted in. So we need to understand what they're communicating to us, and you can only do that by touching the soil, tasting the berries, and kind of fast forward that mindset and taste into your final wine. When you visit these farms and you walk through these vineyards, they actually bring across so much soul. But I think the real magic of South African wines is the sunshine. We can taste the sunshine in our wines, and they just have so much energy. So it's soils and sun that comes together.
I think it's just magic. The product that came out, we knew it was very special. And have the amazing feedback that we got from the industry, being 5-star, for example, in Platte. I think it's also a proof that we were doing the right thing. So I'm very proud of it.
It's just a very special project because I think wine in itself relates to art, to the beauty, to the elegance of what Ellerman House stands for. And it was so special to put a wine together that can really embrace and showcase the character, the true character of elegance that you find at Ellerman House.
And as you might well have guessed from seeing that particular video, Ellerman House is exactly where I find myself. Warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, and welcome to one of my homes away from home, the discreet luxury that is Ellerman House, and in the company of part of the fabric of Ellerman House, Signor Manuel Cabello, which I've been practicing, the double L, giving it that South American.
That's correct. One of the few ones, actually. That's right, yeah.
Well, Manny, a very warm welcome. It's lovely to be here. Just so everybody knows exactly what's happening, Manny is part of the sommelier team here and part of the team that decided to start the project that has culminated in the Ellerman, the wine that launches officially here tonight at Ellerman House. It's been around for a little while now, and a number of people have had the chance to try it, but tonight we say a formal good evening to the wine in the company of not just Manny, but a little later on we'll also chat to Wayve Kolevsohn, the sommelier at Ellerman House who works so closely with Manny. We'll be chatting to Erika Obermeyer, who is the genius winemaker who has given us this particular wine, and we will be speaking to a few members of the wine media community, amongst them Steve Steinfeld, who's joined us down from Johannesburg, the Joburg foodie, Christian Eads, one of South Africa's most respected wine writers, wine judges, wine racconteurs, and the wonderful Maylu Lambert, the Louis Roederer International Young Wine Writer of the Year, who is with us as well. They'll be joining me a little later, but we kick off with Mr. Cabello with a project that I know means so much to you. I remember when you first told me about it, it's probably as excited as I've ever seen you, because it was something you put so much heart and soul into to get just right. Take us back to the beginning of the project, how the idea started and how it began to take shape.
Okay, well, you're right. I mean, the project of making our own wine or having our own wine was always there since it started. You know, I was the first sommelier appointed to Ellerman House back in 2012. So I worked in this place with an amazing wine collection, a new cellar to be built, which is the wine on the way. So a lot of things going on. Obviously, the best South African wines in the country, we have them. And in that, it was a natural progression of eventually create our own wine. We don't own vineyards, so how do you get that done? And personally, I believe wine is a feeling. Most of the most amazing wine I had is based on the people that I had it with, or where did I have it and what place was. And I think that's, for me, it's a sense of place on its own. So it was a project was always there in the back of my head. But just as any project, you know, other things get priority and stay on the side, and you keep carrying on, and you haven't get to do that yet until the point that I say, you know what, let's get this done. And in that period when I met Erika. So yeah, that's just basically was something that needed to be done, and we just waited for the right time.
When you met Erika for the first time, what a wonderful winemaker she is, and what a great story she's had over the last few years. What was the brief? Because it's quite a challenge. We want you to create this great South African wine that speaks to Ellerman House, but how do you put that brief over to a winemaker?
Yeah, it's been very interesting, you know, because first of all, it's the first time I met Erika. So she came to showcase her wines, and it was the first time she was showcasing her wine, because, you know, she was just starting to do her own wine. So she was pretty much unknown for pretty much everyone who didn't know she was part of Rambe, you know. So, but you know, I think with people, you know, I'm a people's person, and you get a feeling for someone. And obviously, I got a wine that I had in my mind that I wanted to be, you know, the wine that represents Ellerman House, you know. The brief was pretty clear, you know. What do you experience when you come to Ellerman House? What is your feeling? It is calmness, it is freshness, or what is the feeling as a property itself, what provides? How can we get that done in a wine? Which the same sort of sensations you can experience what you have in ADC with wine. We didn't know what grape was going to be. I had that in my mind, and tasting some of the wines that she had made. So she had the right sort of material to work with in order to create a special one for us.
It's a lot to put into a wine. So we speak a lot of terroir, and terroir being that sense of place coming through in wine. You can kind of understand it when it is speaking to the type of soil or to the conditions, or get that interpretation where the grapes are from. But trying to speak of a sense of place in terms of capturing the spirit of Ellerman House, that's quite a different challenge.
It was obviously, it was in theory, but I think from day one with Erika, we spoke the same language. You know, she understood exactly what we're trying to do. She got it from the first day. Yes, we did taste and we did blend a few times in that year. But in a sense, I mean, until we got the backbone of the wine was going to be, which was Shiraz, is a Shiraz. It was a particular clone that led us to us into the backbone of the wine, which is a Barossa clone Shiraz that she had available. And then from then, just a matter of just get the layers about that. Just try not to keep the same spirit. So in theory, yes, it's difficult to capture the what are we looking for. We thought we'd get it then, and 2 years later, and taste the wine's already been aged, and I won't release it. I mean, the one until now still is that sort of sensation, this calmness, is everything that we're looking for. So yeah, it was difficult to achieve, but I guess it was easy with Erika.
Well, this is a 2018. I think it's an appropriate time for me to have my first sip of the evening. I suspect there might be one or two more. As I do that and as I try it, I know we have discussed this on the show before, but for people who maybe didn't get to that particular show, just remind people what is in this glass and what makes it stand out for you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, just the backbone is a Shiraz, but without taking the Shiraz sort of meaty character of almost sort of dusty type of Shiraz, we wanted to get the aromatic and the wine. It has to be sexy. That's one word I can describe. You gotta be sexy. You gotta be fresh. You gotta be live. In terms of fruit. So the Barossa clone Shiraz play a big part of it, and it's following by Grenache, which also is a very elegant and very vibrant cultivar, and then it's Cinsault. So you're talking about a lot of going on in there in terms of freshness and sexiness. But I think what really changed the wine, which is we were all surprised when we said we didn't want to be classified as a Rhone wine, another Rhone blend, so we had for this vintage we had a 6% Cabernet Sauvignon, which is you may think it doesn't make a difference, but I know Erika did it by buckets. He just add buckets to it, and it created a massive difference on the wine, and you can see it now. The wine color is still very very light. We both like sort of elegant on it, which is also something that we are as a property. But at the same time, it's approachable. You don't have to wait 20 years to have it. Yes, it will get better or different, but you can have it today. You can have it with food and without food. And I think that's the result, the key of this wine. It's for any occasion, and I think that's what we want to achieve.
I'm looking at the colour against the late afternoon sun over Ellerman House. It is glorious. I'm going to get some outside opinion in just a moment when we cross over to the wine garden and speak to Steve Steinfeld and Joburg Foodie. But just before we do that, last one for you, Manny. This project now having really kicked off, and the second vintage is out already. When you had this first glass and Erika gave it to you, it's right, this is my finished product. What did you think when you drank it?
No, obviously, because we were in the process of blending many times, and I thought it was exactly what we were talking about. It was still very young. The Shiraz was still super young. But I think it was basically we knew we were in a great wine in front of us, and coming from us, we were with wines. That's what we do. So, but again, will the people feel the same? Not necessarily people that in the wine business. Anybody, will they like it? That's what the question. And I think it's pretty much everybody's been very, very, very rewarded and what we did with something.
Well, let's get some thoughts from one of those people who is watching at the moment and giving us an independent viewpoint. He's come down from Johannesburg, one of the more influential members of our food and wine writing community in South Africa, Steve Steinfeld, the Joburg Foodie. I think we find him over in the wine cellar here at Ellerman House, and a fabulous wine cellar it is. Steve Steinfeld, welcome back to Dan Really Likes Wine, and nice to see you in this particular part of the world, which you look quite comfortable in, but then luxury and the Joburg Foodie do tend to go together quite well. I think we're just battling to pick up the sound there, so we'll get our technicians to have a quick look at that. It'll just take a second. How important is it to get the kind of critical acclaim from people that we've got here tonight? How important is it for you, for not just Manny to love this wine, but for other people who are respected in the wine industry to also go, yeah, this is quite special?
Oh, it's great. It's great to pretty much just confirm that we were doing the right thing. But it was important just share what we're passionate about. This is not a wine that has to do with money, having the idea in the first place. It's everyone on the kitchen. It's the staff that work here. It's all super passionate. Yes, the wine tend to go out now, and it's a way to show ourselves that we're here and we're alive and we're excited and we're passionate what we do. So it's exciting to share, first of all, with the media. We haven't done it due to COVID, so it's a little bit delayed we wanted to do it much earlier, but it's great to finally have the option to share it and share what we've been trying to do while we've the world's been quiet. You know, so.
This, of course, is the 28th. I know the 29 is out as well. I'm guessing that 2020 and 2021 are in different stages of production. Exactly. There's a long dynasty of wine that is being planned.
It's been very well received. We got a lot of clients from all over the world, and a lot of clients that keep coming for 20 years. They love our place, it's the house, so obviously for them it's very exciting to have a product that they can share on their own country with their own families. Like, this is come from my house away from home. So we got a ton of people waiting for the wine to arrive overseas, which make us super excited. Because at the end of the day, that's the idea. Have the wine travel, and by then people discover Ellerman House is there yet, and eventually book and come not just to Ellerman House to Cape Town, and see how good the city is and what has to offer.
As I say, we'll be crossing over in just a second to the wine cellar to catch up with the first of our special guests who join us from there, and Steve Steinfeld, Jobo Foodie, will be the first of those. In fact, I think we've almost got him ready, so let me try and cross over there again. He's probably responsible for the technical issue. He probably spilled more of his champagne and oysters. Steve Steinfeld, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great, and you?
Yeah, I'm very well. I don't think I'm looking quite as comfortable as you. Luxury and the Joburg Foodie, two spaces that seem to go rather well together.
Indeed, I take it everywhere we go. But nice to see you in Cape Town again, second time in a month.
Indeed, and thank you for joining us on the show. You're a regular guest, and we're grateful for that. Let's first have just a quick look at this. The Ellerman House as a luxury escape. I know you stayed in some quite remarkable places over the years, but there is something pretty special about Ellerman.
Oh no, without a doubt. I mean, I would say it's arguably one of Cape Town's most iconic addresses, and I just love that everything is almost preempted in a way. And the fact that they're adding a wine to this selection is, I think it's such an obvious addition to the Ellerman experience. And given their incredible wine cellar and everything that their wine program has done and continues to do for South African wine, I'm super, super excited with this next phase of the Ellerman journey.
Tell people about the Ellerman cellar just for a moment. I know it well, I know you know it well. In fact, you're sitting just a few yards from it at the moment. It is a staggering space.
Oh no, it is indeed. I mean, it's absolutely exquisite for starters. The main central feature point of the cellar is obviously that corkscrew that runs throughout and houses hundreds of bottles. It's just majestic in every way, and I think it's such a unique and beautiful way to display wine in a way that only Ellerman House possibly could.
It is a fabulous combination, this wine we're celebrating this evening, because it brings together Ellerman House with its well-established name for its discreet luxury, and Erika Obermeyer, who it really is as exciting a wine talent as we've got at the moment. And we're going to be speaking to her shortly. But in Erika, we've got somebody whose journey, Steve, over the last few years, from saying goodbye to Graham Beck with a slightly uncertain future to now being a recent Platter Newcomer of the Year winner and getting 5 stars all over the place for the wine she makes. It's just such a good, positive, feel-good story in the South African wine world.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, Erika's wines are fantastic, and I love her fervent dedication to terroir and expressing that, but expressing South African terroir, and I think that's so beautiful. And just to see someone so passionate about it, and when she talks about it and how much time she spends in the vines, you really do understand why her wines are the wines she makes. They're beautiful expressions of wherever they come from across the country. And yeah, I think she's definitely, I wouldn't even say a winemaker to watch, but she's a winemaker that South Africa can be proud of, and rightly should be. So I think it's a remarkable move by Ellerman House to task her with making this wine.
Manny referred to the terroir challenge being not just expressing the sense of place of the grapes of origin, and we'll ask Erika about this a little later, but also trying to express a sense of Ellerman House. And it can perhaps have people raise an eyebrow. Geez, that's those wine people being particularly pretentious. How on earth can a wine express a sense of place of a luxury hotel? And yet when you drink it, there is this elegance to this wine. There is this poise to this wine that does fit in so perfectly to the broader Ellerman House story.
I couldn't agree more. And what I find absolutely incredible is the balance this wine has. The fruit is there, the spice is there, the tannins are there, and everything is there, but nothing really juts out. It's really refined. And I think that's like Ellerman House. You know, everything you could possibly need is here, but it's just in the most subtle and elegant of ways.
Take a rather large sip for us, if you will, Steve, and just give us your broad thoughts on why this wine strikes a chord with you.
I mean, I think it's absolutely delicious, first of all. Yumminess, I always think, is a great wine scale. But yeah, it's really just, for 2018 to be this smooth, to be so well integrated, I think it's a beautiful wine. I think the Syrah backbone comes through quite clearly, definitely expressing a lot of that Stellenbosch Syrah that I think makes up quite a large component of the blend. But I love the structure that cab gives. You act, and it is such a small percent from what I know, but you definitely feel its impact. It's there in terms of feeling and structure, which I think is incredible. Obviously, you look at the color and that Grenache Cinsault come through, as well as those beautiful, like, you know, fresh red fruit notes. I think it's a beautiful wine. I think, yeah, it's everything you would want in a red blend.
Well, there is a perfect endorsement. Steve Steinfeld and Joe Foodie, thank you so much. I shall leave you to get back to trying to break into the Ellerman House cellar and then lock yourself inside, which is a challenge I've taken on and failed at several times. Thanks as always for being on Dan Really Likes Wine.
Trying my best.
As you can see, I've replaced a small South American bouncer with a rather more elegant member of the wine community. Before I say hello to Wayve, just a couple of people out there are Lauren Mendoza, who's clearly a very, very shrewd judge of fashion, looking slick for your environs. Well, thank you, Lauren, much appreciated. Grant Saul's watching, as he often does on YouTube. Erika Obermeyer wines are awesome. I really enjoy the Syrah and the Grenache Cinsault top-class wines. Grant's a mutual friend of ours. David Higgs and I were trying some of Erika's new releases over the weekend, and she really does have a touch of magic to what she does. And then Manny LaRue is watching at the moment. Manny LaRue, Vemos Manny, part of the Manny Cabello fan club. There is a very big Manny Cabello fan club. I suspect Wayve might be part of it. Welcome back to Dan Really Likes Wine. It's really lovely to have you on.
Thank you very much.
And lovely to have both you and Manny on, because you've got your combined experience, your passion for Ellerman House and for the Ellerman, and for a team. In terms of getting to work here, working with all this wine, just before we get into the Ellerman itself, we've worked all over the world. We've chatted about this before. There is something about working here in this environment with this wine that I know has really made you feel that you found home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're looking specifically at this wine, I didn't hear what Manny said earlier, but I think we share the same sort of mindset when it comes to the idea behind how this wine came together. And it's about the feeling that you get at Ellerman House, this sort of like peacefulness, elegance, charm, and everything that you feel and you experience at Ellerman House is what we wanted to kind of showcase in this one. And I know I've mentioned it before on your last show that you had here. And I think the expression of all of those things, I think, really does show really well in this wine.
It's quite a challenge, even for a winemaker like Erika, who has got such remarkable talent, to say, we want you to give us a wine that captures us as a hotel, as a home away from home, as a luxury destination. Were you worried that it was going to be a difficult one to get right?
I think when you get to know Erika, which I'm sure you do, you'll get to know that just like her personality, it's like very just effortless. You know, she's a wonderful, warm person. Her wines are absolutely superb. Everything about her is is comfortable, casual, effortless, but her wines are exceptional quality. They're very precise, but it, like everything that you taste in this wine and you smell in this wine, it seems like it was just effortlessly perfect. And I think that shows in fact all of her wines that I've tasted. And I think that theme is very similar to what we have at Ellerman House. So for her, for us to sort of give her the brief, she kind of just the feelings that she experienced at Ellerman House, she kind of put into the wine, and it seemed, I won't say it's easy, but it seems like she makes it look very easy.
How much of an impact did you and Manny have on dictating, suggesting, encouraging what this end product would be?
I think Manny kind of like initiated all the first stages and elements. Erika came to us with samples of the individual grape varieties. So we had a couple of different barrel samples, and then we did the blending together. So we blended and we tasted, and we thought, it needs to be a little bit smoother. It needs to have a bit more intensity. It needs to have a bit more fruit, a little bit less spice. And based on those things, that's kind of like the quantities of each grape variety that we added in. So it was a mutual decision between obviously Erika, Manny, and myself. And we actually did it down in Barak, looking over the terrace at the ocean, so we could get a bit of inspiration as well.
There's plenty of inspiration in this particular glass. When you had that very first sip, and I asked Manny the same question, what was the response?
Well, they had already come up with an initial blend, and I didn't actually know what they had put in it. I didn't know what the grape varieties were. I didn't know anything, and I tasted it, and I was like, wow, this doesn't even taste like something that I would put my finger on as being necessarily South African. It was like very Mediterranean inspired for me. But yeah, I thought it was just like a wow wine from the beginning. Yeah.
And there's a seamlessness to it, that you know that there are a lot of different things going on in a particular glass. Yeah, but there's no definite sense for this is where one grape starts and the next one finishes. That blend has come together, as you say, so effortlessly.
I think what Steve mentioned before, the Syrah is, at first, the Syrah gives us like lovely sort of like punchy, spicy dominance. But the more it opens up, the more you begin to pick up that lovely sort of like youthful Cinsault character that it adds. When on the finish, you're left with this like lovely sort of like dark berry fruit from the cab. So everything kind of shows gradually within the wine. It evolves quite a lot in the glass as you taste it, with food, of course, which we'll be experiencing a bit later.
And which we are very much looking forward to. Last one for you, and we'll see if we can get you to reveal this. The response from Paul Harris, the owner of Ellerman House. He's a big wine man. He certainly likes his wine. He knows his wine as well.
Yeah.
He didn't know about this project at all, so it could have seen you all get fired if it had gone horribly wrong. It didn't go horribly wrong. It went wonderfully right. What was his response when you first tried this?
Well, in fact, we didn't tell him what it was. We gave it to him in a glass to taste, I think. I know Manny was involved with this, and of course, he was impressed. He loved the wine, and he was, I think, proud of all of us for creating something so delicious, and again, something that showcases Ellerman House, even when people are not necessarily at Ellerman House. So yeah, he loves it. I've sent cases of it to various houses that he has around South Africa for like every holiday of the year. So yeah, he's drinking it in quite big quantities.
And why wouldn't he? It's an absolute delight. As are you, Wayve. Thank you so much for being back on the show.
Pleasure.
We're going to drink a little more wine later on this evening
Thank
as
you.
dinner touches down. We spoke to Steve Steinfeld, the Joburg foodie, just a moment ago, and that was quite easy because Steve is a very gentle, relaxed sort. This next one, though, this is terrifying for the Ellerman House team because this is a man who, with a flick of his keyboard, can make or break a wine around the world. He's one of South Africa's most respected and admired wine writers and wine authorities, Mr. Christian Eads. A very good afternoon. Welcome to Ellerman House.
Good afternoon, Dan, and lovely to meet you.
Oh, great! Great to have you on. And great to have you on, not just because it's always good to see you, but also to get your considered opinion. I'm always interested with people like yourself who sit very much at the top of the wine appreciation, wine writing, food chain. You taste so much wine. First of all, do you ever get bored with the sheer volume of wine that is sent your way to drink? And then also, how do you balance that sense of, I'm Christian Eads, if I say this wine is great, it's going to fly off the shelf. And if I look at it with a, yeah, maybe not quite so much, well, you might as well just sell your wine estate.
Well, Dan, thank you for the effusive compliments. But I don't, I suppose one way of answering it is, with great power comes great responsibility. Another way of answering it is, I think we live in a day and age where wine buyers make quite calculated decisions. They draw on various references, various critics before they make a purchasing decision. And hopefully I'm just adding to the general conversation. I'd hate to think that I've put anybody out of business by virtue of a bad rating.
I very much doubt you have, but you have certainly given many people a reason to celebrate by endorsing or giving a wine particular praise. And you've got so much to get through. How much wine, let's say in a week, would Christian Eads receive and work through in terms of rating and appreciating?
The short answer is more than my family doctor would like me to.
I think that's a very good answer therein. Does wine still excite you on a weekly, a monthly basis? Are there still wine?
So. I mean, it's just a topic of endless fascination. I think the point is, for me, I've been doing this for 20 odd years now, and you never stop learning. It's always extraordinarily humbling. You think there's everything there is to know on a particular subject, and then along comes a version of a wine that you could never have predicted, and it's just utterly compelling, and it's a complete pleasure. And then of course, in addition, it goes with really lovely people and also really lovely food. So I may be short in my bank balance might not be as robust as I'd like, but rich in many other ways.
Particularly in experience and in the respect in which you're held and esteem which you're held in the wine industry, which is why I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on this particular wine. Before I ask you about what you think of the wine itself, when you first heard about the Ellerman, what were your initial thoughts, your initial expectations?
Frankly, I was a bit nonplussed. The Ellerman cellar, the reputation of the Ellerman cellar goes before it. So I thought to myself, do they really need a house brand? But I've interrogated Erika, the winemaker, Paul Harris, Ellerman owner, and I think it's quite carefully thought out. It's a calling card for this wonderful establishment, and it's sort of shades of it remind me of how Sangita go about their business. A guest comes here, has a fabulous experience, enjoys the wine, decides they want to take some home, and then become ambassadors for brand Ellerman, brand Cabello, South African wine, South Africa the country. It can only be a good thing.
It's a collaboration that's been a little while in the making, and it's a collaboration that could have seen Ellerman House sit alongside pretty much anybody. The cellar and the reputation to which you refer means that probably just about any winemaker in the country would have been one phone call away. What do you make of Ellerman House taking Erika Obermeyer on as the partner for the wine?
I think it's Erika's reputation precedes her. We're at a point in the South African wine industry's history where we're spoiled for talent. I mean, to take nothing away from Erika, but as good a pick as any. She's obviously parted ways with Graham Beck a few years ago, and busy forging a path for herself. And good luck to her and Ellen.
The result of this partnership is the wine we are drinking now. The Christian Eats tasting notes are famous, and I know with a simple sniff of a glass, you can tell us where the winemaker went to school and what year the corks were made in. Give us your thoughts on what you're getting out of this particular wine, and if we can get one from you, one of the famous Christian Eats ratings.
I'm good, but not that good. It's just been freshly poured for me. I'd like a little bit long with it. But a few comments I would make is that it's essentially consists of Rhone varieties, but with a dash of Cab. And I think the dash of Cab is inspired in that it sort of gives it something of a South African stamp. It's you've broken the Rhone mold and added a Bordeaux variety, and it sort of recalls chocolate block immediately. But also what Chris and Andrea Mudder are trying to do with Lieu Passant, i.e. not following any established templates and using the best grapes to hand to make something that's hopefully uniquely South African. So that's the first point I would make. And then the second point is I was a little anxious that it was going to be this big blockbuster wannabe luxury experience. And it's actually, my initial impression is it's quite medium bodied, tends to more towards the red fruit rather than black fruit end of the spectrum. And according to Erika, it's got a 13.5 alcohol, which is relatively modest, and goes towards ease of drinking and versatility on the table. So I really look forward to having it with dinner.
All right. Well, what we'll do is next time we're on the show, we'll see if in the small hours of tomorrow morning, while the post-launch pool party is going on, if we can get an official rating out of Mr. Reeds. To go back to your first point, though, talking about the style of wine, does that reflect a broader trend you feel in South Africa, where we're not trying to be something else that the world suggests we should be doing with wine, but we really are starting to get increasingly comfortable in our own identity as a wine-producing nation?
Very, very much so. And I think it's come with time, and there's, as our confidence builds, we're less beholden on what we think the world might want from us, and rather able to go to the world with something that's based on our own imaginations and our own take on what works in our growing condition.
And from that, just before we have Erika join us, she will be in a moment to give us her side of this particular wine story. It's been a torrid year. You know that as well as anybody for the wine industry. You and the Wine Mag team have been fantastic in supporting our South African wine industry. Do you feel we've turned the corner? Do you feel there is now a reason to be a little bit more optimistic, to be a little bit more cheerful about our industry?
The analogy I would use is the sense of a heavyweight boxer that's picking himself up off the canvas and just refuses to get knocked down and get knocked out. And I think there's a sort of incredible resilience about the South African wine industry that, like, whatever comes its way, whether it be droughts or pandemics, just refuses to be beaten. And I think there's a lot of hard work that lies ahead, but there's a sort of, my sense is let's get down to business, roll up our sleeves and get stuck in kind of attitude that's just incredibly gratifying to see. And and there will be good days and months and years ahead, but I don't think we're out of the woods just yet. But it's there's a can-do attitude that's just wonderful to see.
It certainly is, and I think we've seen a lot of that as we needed to over the last year. Just before we let you get back to the slightly more informal side of this evening's launch, if people want to read, follow, watch, engage with Christian Eats, where do they find you?
Well, of course, the website, which is updated Monday to Friday, is winemag.co.za. And then peeps can follow me on Insta and Facebook. My handle's @Christian Eats on both platforms.
Perfect. Well, if you don't have those, you've missed them, we'll put them up on our social media channels a little later. Christian, thank you so much for being part of this evening. I love the fact that the wine has taken you a little by surprise and given you some joy, which, given the hundreds of bottles a week that you get through, is a great sign for the Ellerman. So thank you for that. Thank you for being part of it. Thank you for being part of the show, and look forward to having you on again soon.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.
There we go, live from the wine cellar. Christian Eads, one of our most celebrated wine writers, wine judges, wine voices, and authorities. Just before the star of the show engages me in conversation, as she will in a moment, we've got, in fact, we'll catch up with them in a moment, the guests who are watching and sending some comments. Erika Obermeyer, hello.
Hello, Dan. Good to see you.
It's fabulous to see you. I feel like I'm in the presence of a rock star, because for the last 40 minutes, I've just had people telling me how wonderful Erika Obermeyer is. It's like you've written all of their scripts for them.
It's wonderful to hear. And you know, that has always been my mission for wine, is to connect to people and celebrate this amazing juice we've got in the glass. That's what winemaking and fine wine is all about. Connecting people, telling the story. So thank you.
And you connected brilliantly. I was connecting over your wine this weekend. David Higgs of the Cameron Vandenberg and Don McGly, a few friends. We opened some of the new releases, which your junior assistant Neil had kindly sent up to us. And just, again, more terrific examples of the wine that you make. This is something different, because it's not just having to satisfy what Erika wants to make. Suddenly you're making wine on terms that are not just your own. How difficult, how challenging, how fun and exciting was that?
I think, honestly, this has been one of the best and most exciting projects I've ever worked with. The Ellerman team is just incredible to be around, and they do things with so much fun and passion and enthusiasm. But for me, it's incredibly important to stay true to the personality that the wine will. It's got Ellerman House on the label, and this beautiful property and everything that it stands for. I wanted people to have a little bit of that Ellerman vibe and the presence of what it feels like being here. So obviously it needs to showcase elegance, it needs to be sophisticated, but most of all, it needs to tell the story and give you a sense of place of South Africa, because we are blessed with the most incredible terroir. We've got incredible vineyards, 50 kilometers apart, and this blend really brings forward the best of what South Africa can produce. So it's not a single terroir wine, it's a multi-terroir wine. There's a lot of Stellenbosch as the base, but it also gets wine and incredible fruit from Paardeberg, from close to Wellington, some Grenache, and Cinzo. So yeah, and then we're back with a little dash of Cab from Stellenbosch. So yeah, this is a celebration of South Africa and Ellerman House.
Wine as an expression of terroir is something I can understand. The process, though, to say, right, I'm going to make my wine express Ellerman House, that's a different challenge entirely. For somebody who doesn't make wine for a living, explain to me how you approach that, how you make that work.
I think it's really important, as I said, to have a feel for what you want to showcase and to bring forward that whole vibe, the energy of the personality of the property, but also to try and match the best of South Africa and to bring, for instance, I wanted some sophistication, I want some power, because you can never leave Ellerman House and not remember it for always. So the cab kinds of play there, and it brings that little bit of structure and power to the blend. Whereas the beautiful Cinzo and the Grenache that adds so much lovely fruit and fresh fruit brings you this freshness of rejuvenating your soul when you sit on the terrace at Ellerman and just enjoy the beauty all around, whether it's the art, the building, or the ocean, and just the personalities, the culture of South Africa. And also, it's really important to have a wine that really goes well with food, because we're in the hospitality industry. People come here to have our amazing cuisine, and we needed a wine that could really kind of just make it even better. The whole experience. And fine wine to me is that it brings people together, it brings conversation, And the great things in life is just much better when you've got a glass of wine with you.
You're not going to find any argument whatsoever on this particular show to that. The process of making, you've had some challenges over the last few years. You made a big call to leave Groenbeck. It's probably the best call you'll ever make. Not that Groenbeck is a lovely place, but it's set you free and allowed you to give us this wine. With this one though, the magnitude of this is Ellerman House. It comes with a name, it comes with a reputation. You know how to make the wine that does makes good on that name. Were there any nerves with this particular project?
I kind of thrive under pressure. So I think my personality is, I named one of my wines meticulous. I'm very meticulous in everything that I do, and I'm a perfectionist. And I kind of need a challenge to live up to it. So it's been fun since day one. And I think it just, whenever you presented with some challenges in life, it always brings the best out. If you just think about it clearly, you need a vision, you need to stay true to yourself, and you need to really work hard towards that goal. And Ellerman, this project has been that from day one, so it was never difficult for me. I think it was always, I want to make this even better than what I think I can. So it's been a really amazing project.
Well, it's one that's got great reviews. We've already heard from Steve Steinfeld. Even Christian Eads talking very, very fondly about it, the great Christian. And talking about your inspiration, using that little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, as you've captured it now, this is the 2018. It's not a one-off project for this, is it? I think we've already got 2019 out, I believe 20 and 21 are in various stages of preparation. So it's the chance to create a wine dynasty.
Definitely. I think we kind of perfected the kind of recipe that we're looking for. So it gets a lot easier. This year I've brought in another few elements that I think can even enhance this blend. So you learn along the way. There's new vineyards coming on the horizon, and sometimes you want a little bit of spice added, or so there's always room to grow. But I think it's very important for us to tell the story of South Africa, to tell the story of the vintages. And that's the beauty of a fine wine. It is certainly, it tells the story of a place, it tells the story of the maker, but most of all, it tells that story of the vintage. And that is what's so beautiful. So we would love to continue and never miss a vintage. Even if it's not as great, I think we need to celebrate, but it's not always the same. Life is not always the same. So we need to look for beauty everywhere, and certainly when you work with wine, there's beauty all around.
And I think that's part of the joy of being able to create this sort of project and create it in South Africa, where we don't always, with a few exceptions, have to make exactly the same wine exactly the same year, because we think people might expect that, well, I had the 18, so the 19 must be a replica thereof. It's the chance to go, look, it sits in the same broad style, but this year we found a great parcel of the weather was different, and it enabled us to do this and get the best out of that year and turn the best out of the wine.
Most definitely. I think when we started with the 18 vintage, probably the most challenging vintage I've ever worked with. It was the last or the third year of the extreme drought in South Africa, and we had to adjust. The 19 shows a little bit more depth and maybe a slightly bigger structure, but we were able to ripen the fruit fully, leave them longer on the vine, because we weren't so stressed to lose that freshness and the acidities and the fruit. So 18 being a very, very challenging vintage in terms of the ripening, we had extreme heat, but whenever a vineyard stress, you lose the fruit. So we picked the 18 a little bit fresher, so the alcohol is at least 0.5 lower than the 19. But in itself, I think that lends to knowing where we want to go with this wine. You need to adjust to kind of bring those best personalities out in the wine. So 18 is very different from 19, but in a broader sense, the wines are very similar. So they've got this golden thread of the beauty, the elegance, the structure of what Ellerman House stands for. So yeah, you need to, and I think when you're able to connect to the vineyard, I'm blessed with the incredible sense of smell, and I can remember that smell. So I build up this library of flavor profiles, and I can very easily go back into my mind and see how can I adjust to still bring out the best out of that vintage. And as I said before, there's beauty all around. You just need to listen to the vineyard and act on that very fast and just give it your best. It always rewards. Nature always rewards.
Plateau New Winer of the Year, awards left, right, and centre for your wine. An army of fans that grows by the day, and now the architect of the Ellerman. I'd say being Erika Obermeyer is pretty cool at the moment.
It's very cool. Thanks, Dan. Sitting next to you is even cooler. Thank you very much for that. It's been an incredible journey. I did my 6th vintage already under my own label, and it just gets better every day. I love it so much. I've finally grown into my own skin in terms of what I want to express. Not making wine for a corporate anymore in terms of limiting you to what that brand stands for. It gives you an extreme creativity, and that I think feels perfection and the ultimate goal of making just incredible wines. I'm very blessed and grateful for where I am. Thank you.
If you have a chance to try this wine and you like it, this is the person responsible. I'm almost certain you will. If you don't like it, clearly Manny did something wrong. We need to fix that up. Erika, thank you so much.
Thanks,
We still have an evening here at Ellerman House with Erika as we celebrate the launch of the Ellerman. We've got one last guest, and if the last one was a little terrifying, well, this is one who initially you just see this big smile and this absolute loveliness, and then underneath just bubbles this very sharp pen and this insight into the world of wine that few can match. She is the Louis Roederer Intergalactic Young Best Wine Writer in the History of the World Ever. I think that's what it is called. Joining us once again on Dan Really Likes Wine, it's Maylu Lambert. Hello, Maylu.
Hello, Dan. I'm never going to get tired of that introduction. Never.
Well, it is one that is well deserved. How is the global intergalactic world's best young wine writer in the history of wine ever?
You can keep going. No, I'm good. I'm sitting here in the beautiful Ellerman House. I actually thought I was going to see you in real life for once, but you know, I've got a beautiful glass of the new 2018, so I'm good. I'm in a very good space.
I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on the wine, and we're going to get some tasting notes and some opinions from you in just a second. And before we do that, there's a similar question for one that I asked Christian. What were your first thoughts when you heard this collaboration was in the offing, and that a winemaker as starry as Erika had been roped in by Ellerman House to create their own brand?
Well, I think Erika is a brilliant winemaker, so well done to Ellerman House for roping her in. I love, of course, the fact that she's a woman, and I think we have such an exciting women winemakers coming up. I was with a few this weekend, and I just think they are real stars, and we need to shine the spotlight on them more. So yeah, so in terms of winemaker choice, brilliant. And I do like the link up between such a premier tourist destination and our wine industry, because actually the two walk hand in hand together, and I think that's an important thing to remember, especially coming out of COVID, she says, hopefully, and vaccinations. The tourists that come to Ellerman House, when they taste the wine, they'll take that footprint of South Africa back with them.
Which is exactly what they want you to do. They don't, as I've discovered, want you to take home the pillows and the linen. I have a slight issue with that. My apologies again. It was a complete accident. I'll certainly take the wine home happily and celebrate with it. A wine that we've spoken with Manny, with Wayve, with Christian about having a sense of place. One of the things I love about your wine writing is you bring the world of wine alive, and yet you still make it accessible. When we talk about trying to give the terroir of Ellerman House a sense of purpose in a glass of wine, is that more pretentious wine speak, or is that something you can actually do?
No, I can grab hold of that for sure. I mean, immediately there's a sense of grace in this wine. It's got this light-footed appeal, this lightness of being, and the sense of grace, which Ellerman House definitely has. And there's also this aside from the elegance, there's an art, almost kind of a little bit of an eccentricity here, which the wine also has. The wine's also eccentric. I mean, when I looked at the components, I was a bit mad. I was like, well, all these Rhone varietals of cab, what are you trying to do? But then, upon tasting, got all the lovely, fresh, bright juiciness of the road varietals, and then that cab comes at the end, like a firm handshake, almost a way, thank you for coming kind of thing. So I think it works really well.
Yeah, it is an inspired touch. Christian Eads saying as much, and you have repeated that. And I think under Erika's guiding hand, it's no surprise that it's come together so well. And it's a guiding hand that in such a short space of time has done so well. I think we look at all of our winemakers, we have so many brilliant ones here in South Africa. And I'm not sure there's anybody whose star has ascended quite so quickly, quite so spectacularly as Erika's has in just 6 years.
Yeah. Was there a question?
I think you answered it perfectly. There wasn't really much more to say there. Her star has been.
I'm excited for what next has to come from Erika for sure.
All right, let's have a look at the wine. You mentioned that it's at first glance a slightly odd combination that does work out so well, and that firm handshake of the cab giving it a really nice finish. In terms of the wine on the Melu scale, how does this rank, and what makes it stand out for you?
So I don't know if anybody else mentioned this, but Cabernet and Cinsault are old bedfellows in South Africa. It's an old South African winemaking trick. I mean, all the old Chateau Libertas were Cab and Cinsault based, and it's that Cinsault juiciness paired with the Cab structure that makes it so clever. And what I like about this wine is it's got something only South Africa can do. I've been tasting a lot of international wines lately, and what South Africa brings to the table is a real clarity of fruit. So we can get the ripeness of fruit, and there's a clarity there, but with the freshness, because we are coastal, mostly coastal. Freshness of fruit, that ripeness of fruit, and with it, hopefully an ageability. And longevity. I don't think anybody can do it quite like we can. That fruits and freshness. Was there any surprise to you in terms of the style of this wine, that maybe it wasn't a big hitting, showy kind of wine, or was this sort of the style you were anticipating? I was anticipating it because I'm a fan of Erika's work, and I think the trend is definitely to go lighter, more finessed, more light-footed, to walk a bit more lightly upon the earth. And this is the kind of wine that does that, and it's full of grace. But it's got that handshake at the end that just says, you can still eat with me. You can still sit in front of a fireplace with me, but I'm also good a bit, around the pool sometimes.
An endorsement from Manuel Lambert. Erika Obermeyer, you can put your feet up and retire happily. You have made it in the wine world. Manuel, before we let you get back to the sampling of the wine and celebrating this evening, if people want to read what you're up to, catch up with what you're up to, you've got a website, if I'm not mistaken, that covers a great deal of your work.
Thank you, Dan. Always appreciate a bit of a shout out. Yes, you can check mailulambert.com. For my latest work, or follow me on Twitter or Instagram. Lots of stuff.
If you have even a fleeting interest in wine, you should be following Malu and following her every move, because the wine writing is brilliant, the insight is fantastic, and she's making her own wine, which I'm particularly interested to try in due course. Malu, thank you so much for joining us, for being part of the show, for lighting it up as you always do, and for being part of the Ellerman launch. Lovely to see you, and cheers.
A bottle of my wine is on its way to you in about 12 months' time. Okay, we'll do a show.
Considering my highlight of 2022 already in the diary. Malu Lambert runs a wonderful creative agency called Fable, telling stories of the food and wine industry, writes quite beautifully, and is a wonderful supporter of South African wine. She's also our last guest for this evening. A couple of words from some of the guests who've been watching before we say goodbye. Pablo is clearly a big fan of Manuel. Pablo Montenegro, Manuel, with half a dozen exclamation marks. Well, we're all fans of Pablo. Reggie is back with us. It's not really a show unless Reginald Peckler hasn't joined us. Wine created by Zen master Erika Obermeyer. The Ellerman has reached the elixir of life. I'm chuffed. Well, you should be, and you should see if you can get some of this up at Cheetah Plains. It'll be a wonderful addition to your cellar. And then from Northern Ireland, my dear mum Helen, who always watches, she's just got another fan. Speaking of Erika, I suspect, but could equally apply to Manuel or indeed to Wayve. Well, while everybody finishes off and prepares for dinner, I'm going to take the chance to just remind you that if you haven't already joined the Pick and Pay Wine Club, just send your smart shopper number to 36775, and that gets you free membership. It comes with great rewards as well. 3 times the smart shopper points on all wine, 20% off 10 great wines, deals as well on cases, on magnums, on a really cool selection, and a celebration of great South African wine. And remember, Pick and Pay's commitment in 2021 is to buy 25 million bottles of South African wine. That does it for this evening from Ellerman House and the official launch of the Ellerman. A huge thank you to Manny and Wayve, two of my favorite sommeliers. Also, a big thank you to Erika herself, who's created this wine we are reveling in this evening. To Christian Eads, a big thank you. Also, a huge thank you to Steve Steinfeld and to Mayley Lambert, who waived her usual extraordinary appearance fee to come and join us this evening. A big thank you. I will be back. What am I doing next? Yes, Monday. Monday's really cool. This Saturday, 50 years of Stellenbosch wine roots. Something Ken Forrester and Kevin Arnold would have been in a trick at that stage. We have got a celebration on Monday, the very first 3 estates, the founding partners at Delline, Spear and Siemensig. I will be chatting to Jacques from Spear, to Nora from Delline, and to Johan Malan, son of France, from Siemensig, as we celebrate. And the next Thursday, I am live from Plaisir de Merle, the 2,814th new business venture of Michael Jordan, as we celebrate its new ownership. So lots of excitement coming, and also look out early next month for something rather special with the team from Bosch & Dell. That does it for me for tonight. I'm off to have some more of this wine, have a lovely dinner, and indulge in that nude pool party at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. That is being set up by the wonderful Joe Buerter. Can't wait to get stuck in. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again on Monday night. Have a great wine week. Keep drinking South African wine from Ellerman House. Goodbye.